High Chancellor Vex Thera stood before the massive viewing screen in the command center of the Zephyrian flagship. The screen showed images of the creatures they had been watching for months. Humans, they called themselves. Small, weak things, with no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no poison glands. Their skin was soft and easily torn. They had no armor plating like proper warriors should have. "Look at them," Vex Thera said to his officers. "These pathetic creatures think they can spread across our galaxy. They are nothing more than walking meatbags." The Zephyrians were proud warriors. They stood 8 feet tall, with thick scales covering their bodies. Their claws could tear through metal. Their teeth could crush bone. They had conquered 47 star systems through pure strength and superior weapons. Every species they met either joined them willingly or died fighting. Captain Zex Hora pulled up more data on the humans. "Our scientists have studied their biology, High Chancellor. They are incredibly weak. A single Zephyrian warrior could kill dozens of them without effort. They have no natural defenses at all." The other officers laughed. It was hard to believe such weak creatures had managed to leave their home planet. The humans had built small colonies on a few nearby worlds, but the colonies looked primitive. Simple buildings, basic technology, nothing that could threaten a real military force. "What about their weapons?" asked another officer. "Crude," Captain Zex Hora replied. "They use simple projectile weapons and basic energy guns. Nothing compared to our plasma cannons and molecular disruptors. Their ships are slow and lightly armored. We could destroy their entire fleet with a single battle group." Vex Thera nodded with satisfaction. The humans would be easy to deal with. But first, they needed to follow proper protocol. The Galactic Council required a formal declaration before any military action could begin. The council meeting took place on the neutral station orbiting the dead world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 23 different species gathered in the Great Chamber. Most were predator species like the Zephyrians. The Korthak delegation brought their ceremonial war clubs. The Vex High displayed their natural poison spikes. Everyone looked dangerous and powerful. When Vex Thera took the speaking platform, he activated the holographic display. Images of humans appeared above the assembled delegates. The creatures looked even more pathetic when shown at this size. "Fellow warriors of the Council," Vex Thera began, "we face a growing threat to our civilized galaxy. These creatures, these humans, are spreading like a disease across space. They come from a world so harsh that it should have killed them long ago. Yet somehow, they survived, and now they think they belong among us." Murmurs of disgust rippled through the chamber. No one liked the idea of weak species contaminating their territory. "Look at them," Vex Thera continued. "No natural weapons, no armor, no poison. They are so weak that a simple fall could kill them. Yet they dare to build colonies in our space. They dare to send messages claiming they come in peace and want to trade." The Korthak representative stood up, his massive frame towering over the platform. "What do you propose, Zephyrian?" "Total extermination," Vex Thera declared. "We give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we wipe them out completely. It will be quick and easy. A few ships, a few days, and the problem will be solved forever." The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed that the humans posed no real threat, but needed to be dealt with before they spread further. The weak had no place among the strong. Back on his flagship, Vex Thera prepared the declaration of war. It would be broadcast to every human colony and their home world. The message was simple and clear. "Attention, human settlements. This is High Chancellor Vex Thera of the Zephyrian Collective, speaking for the Galactic Council. Your species has been judged unfit for space travel. You will immediately abandon all colonies outside your home system and return to your planet of origin. You will submit to Zephyrian oversight and provide tribute as directed. You have 72 standard hours to comply. Failure to surrender will result in your complete extermination. The message included detailed scans of Zephyrian warships to show the humans exactly what they would face. Massive vessels bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Fighter squadrons that moved faster than anything in the human fleet. Ground forces, equipped with power armor and energy weapons. Do you think they will surrender, High Chancellor? Captain Zexhora asked. Of course they will. Vex Thera replied confidently. They are weak. Weak creatures always surrender when faced with superior force. They will beg for mercy and promise to serve us faithfully. 4:30. 4. The Chancellor was already planning how to use the humans. They could serve as workers in the mines, on the harsh worlds where even Zephyrians struggled to survive. Their small size might make them useful for delicate technical work. They could breed quickly to replace losses, unlike more valuable species. The message was sent across human space using their own communication networks. The Zephyrians made sure every human would see it. They wanted complete surrender, not isolated pockets of resistance that would require more military action to clean up. As the 72-hour countdown began, Vex Thara felt satisfied. This would be the shortest war in galactic history. The humans would probably surrender within hours once they saw what they were facing. The Zephyrian fleet began moving toward the nearest human colonies. They brought just enough firepower to make the threat credible, without wasting resources. After all, how much force did you really need to defeat a species that had trouble surviving on its own planet? The countdown timer ticked away the hours. Soon, the Zephyrians would have their answer. The 72 hours passed without a single word from the humans. No surrender messages, no desperate pleas for mercy, no attempts at negotiation, just complete silence. High Chancellor Vex Thera stared at the communication screens, showing nothing but static from human space. Every human colony had gone dark at exactly the same moment. Not even emergency beacons or distress signals remained active. Perhaps they are preparing to surrender, Captain Zexhora suggested. Maybe they need more time to organize the evacuation. No, Vex Thera replied, though he felt the first hint of unease. Begin the assault. Send the first fleet to Proxima Colony. We will make an example of them that the other colonies will understand. The Zephyrian First Fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 40 smaller ships. More than enough firepower to level a small human settlement. The journey took 6 days, and during that time, the communications blackout continued. No human ship tried to flee. No messages begged for more time. When they arrived at Proxima Colony, the Zephyrian ships found something unexpected. The colony was completely empty. Not abandoned in panic, but systematically evacuated. Every piece of useful equipment had been removed. Every vehicle was gone. Even the metal from the buildings had been stripped away. Where are they? Demanded Admiral Kex Voro, commander of the First Fleet. His ships scanned the planet's surface with every sensor they had. No life signs. No heat signatures. Nothing but empty structures and bare ground. Maybe they ran away to hide in the mountains, suggested one of his officers. The planet had rough terrain with deep caves and thick forests, perfect places for weak creatures to hide from superior forces. Admiral Kex Voro ordered landing parties to search for survivors. 3 companies of Zephyrian Marines landed near the main settlement. They moved carefully through the empty buildings, weapons ready for any sign of resistance. The first trap activated when Sergeant Tex Mira kicked open the door of what looked like a storage building. The explosion was not very large, just enough to collapse the building and kill the 6 Marines inside. The humans had filled the structure with fertilizer and mining explosives, creating a crude but effective bomb. Cowards, Admiral Kex Voro snarled when he heard the report. They plant traps and run away like insects. Find them and crush them. The second trap was more creative. The humans had rigged the main water treatment facility to explode when anyone tried to use the controls. The blast sent chunks of metal flying in all directions, wounding a dozen Marines who were trying to get the systems working again. Then the attacks began. The first Zephyrian patrol to venture into the forest never came back. Search parties found pieces of their equipment scattered across several miles, but no bodies. It was like the Marines had simply vanished into the trees. The second patrol made contact with the enemy. 3 humans attacked a squad of 12 Zephyrian Marines, using nothing but primitive slug-throwing weapons and homemade explosives. The Zephyrians expected an easy victory against such poorly armed opponents. They were wrong. The humans fought like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. When surrounded, they did not surrender or break formation. Instead, they charged directly into the superior force, using tactics that made no sense. One human wrapped himself around a Marine and detonated a bomb strapped to his chest, killing them both. Another fought with his bare hands even after being shot multiple times, clawing at enemy weapons until he finally collapsed. The worst part was their eyes. The Zephyrians were used to seeing fear in their enemies. Every species they had conquered showed the proper reaction to superior force, but these humans looked at towering, armored warriors with claws and fangs, and they showed no fear at all. Instead, they looked angry. "These are not the weak creatures our scientists described," reported Captain Hex Nara after his company suffered 30% casualties fighting just 5 humans. "They do not behave like any rational species. They fight as if they want to die, as long as they can hurt us first." Admiral Kex Voro studied the reports with growing confusion. The humans were definitely physically weak. A single Zephyrian could overpower several humans in direct combat. But they did not fight like weak creatures. They fought like cornered predators, using every dirty trick and improvised weapon they could find. The breakthrough came when the Zephyrians finally captured a living human. The prisoner was a woman named Sarah Chen, a former mining engineer who had spent 12 years on Proxima Colony. She was small even for a human, barely reaching a Zephyrian's chest. During interrogation, Admiral Kex Voro tried to understand her species. "Why do you fight?" he demanded. "You cannot win. We are stronger, faster, better armed. Surrender now, and we will allow your people to live as slaves." Sarah Chen looked up at the 8-foot-tall alien with its scales and claws, and she laughed, actually laughed. "You want to know why we fight?" she said. "Because you made a mistake. You looked at Earth and saw a death world full of disasters and predators. You thought that made us weak, but you got it backwards." The Admiral leaned forward, genuinely curious despite his anger. "Earth did not make us weak," Sarah continued. "Earth made us survivors. Every day on our world, something tries to kill us. Earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, diseases. Animals with bigger teeth than yours. We have been fighting death itself since the day we crawled out of the caves. And now you think you can scare us?" She smiled, and Admiral Kex Voro felt something he had never experienced before. For just a moment, looking at this tiny, helpless creature, he felt afraid. "You declared war on humans," Sarah Chen said. "Congratulations. You just declared war on the most deadly species in the galaxy." The interrogation ended when Sarah triggered a small explosive device hidden in her tooth, destroying herself and damaging the holding cell. Even in captivity, even facing certain death, the humans refused to give up. Admiral Kex Voro sent an urgent message back to High Chancellor Vex Thara. The report was brief but troubling. The humans were not behaving like any enemy they had faced before. This would not be the easy victory they had expected. The war spread across 5 star systems as the Zephyrian fleets attacked every known human colony. High Chancellor Vex Thara had committed nearly half his military to what should have been a simple cleanup operation. Instead, each battle brought new surprises and mounting casualties. The humans were learning. At New Harmony Colony, the Zephyrians expected another guerrilla fight like Proxima. Instead, they found humans who had somehow acquired Zephyrian weapons and armor. The colonists had stripped the equipment from dead Marines and figured out how to use it in just 3 weeks. "How is this possible?" demanded Admiral Kexvoro as he watched security footage of humans operating captured plasma cannons. "Our weapons have genetic locks. Only Zephyrians should be able to fire them." His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. "The humans appear to have bypassed the locks, sir. We found several dead colonists with their hands surgically modified to match Zephyrian genetic markers. They mutilated themselves just to use our weapons against us." At Far Reach Colony, the humans tried something even more disturbing. They had captured several Zephyrian ships during the initial assault and somehow learned to fly them. When the Second Fleet arrived expecting to find a defeated settlement, they instead faced their own vessels firing their own weapons. The human pilots were terrible compared to trained Zephyrian crews, but they made up for skill with sheer insanity. Human-controlled ships rammed Zephyrian vessels at full speed, turning both craft into expanding clouds of debris. They overloaded reactor cores and flew the resulting bombs straight into enemy formations. "They are using our own ships as weapons," reported Admiral Tex Cora from the Second Fleet. "They do not try to win normal space battles. They just try to cause as much damage as possible before they die." But the most shocking development came from the outer colonies, where humans had more time to prepare. These settlements had been watching the war for months, learning from each battle and adapting their tactics based on Zephyrian weaknesses. The attack on Haven Colony showed how much the humans had learned. The Zephyrians arrived expecting another ground fight against desperate colonists. Instead, they found empty settlements and no immediate resistance. The landing proceeded normally until the Marines tried to enter the main buildings. That was when they discovered the humans had been studying Zephyrian biology very carefully. The buildings were filled with a gas that was harmless to humans, but caused severe reactions in Zephyrian respiratory systems. Within minutes, entire squads of Marines were collapsing with breathing problems. Their natural scales, so effective against conventional weapons, offered no protection against chemical attacks designed specifically for their species. Emergency medical teams tried to treat the affected Marines, but the humans had prepared for that too. The antidote stations were booby-trapped with devices that released even more toxic compounds when activated. "They have been experimenting on our captured soldiers," reported the chief medical officer with barely controlled horror. "They know exactly how our bodies work. They know what hurts us and what kills us." The space battles evolved just as quickly. Human ships began appearing with completely new weapon configurations. They had studied captured Zephyrian technology and found ways to improve it using their own scientific knowledge. Human engineers somehow made Zephyrian energy weapons more powerful by modifying the focusing crystals with techniques the aliens had never considered. They built ships that moved faster than anything in the Zephyrian fleet by stripping away all defensive systems and life support except in small crew compartments. "They are not trying to build better warships," observed Admiral Kexvoro after reviewing the latest battle reports. "They are building guided missiles that happen to have crews inside them." The most disturbing innovation came from a human named Marcus Webb, formerly a communications technician on the mining station at Kepler's World. Somehow, he had learned to hack Zephyrian military networks. The first sign of trouble was when Zephyrian ships began receiving false orders during battle. Entire squadrons would suddenly break formation and attack their own allies because their computers told them to. Command codes that should have been impossible to fake were being used to send ships to the wrong locations at the wrong times. Then the psychological warfare began. Human hackers started broadcasting messages directly to individual Zephyrian soldiers. Personal messages that showed they had been studying not just alien biology and technology, but alien psychology as well. "Greetings, Sergeant Tex Nara of the 3rd Marine Battalion," the messages would say. "We know you have a mate named Vex Lena and 3 young offspring. We know where they live. We know what school your children attend. We know you are afraid of deep water because of an incident when you were 7 years old. Would you like to see them again?" The messages were not empty threats. Human intelligence had somehow penetrated deep into Zephyrian space and gathered detailed information about individual soldiers and their families. They knew things that should have been impossible for aliens to discover. Morale began to collapse as soldiers realized the enemy knew more about them than they knew about the enemy. High Chancellor Vex Thera called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. The war that should have ended in days had been going on for 4 months with no end in sight. "How many casualties?" he asked his military advisor. 43,000 dead, sir. Another 60,000 wounded or missing. We have lost over 200 ships and half our ground equipment. Vex Thera stared at the numbers in disbelief. They had committed nearly their entire military to fighting a species that barely had spaceflight 6 months ago. And they were losing. "What about human losses?" "Unknown, sir. We believe we have killed several 100,000 civilians, but we have no reliable count of military casualties. Every time we capture a human position, we find evidence that they had far more people than our estimates suggested." "How is that possible?" "They appear to be recruiting from their homeworld, sir. New volunteers arrive faster than we can kill the existing forces. Also, the surviving colonists seem to have extensive knowledge of military tactics that they should not possess." Admiral Kexvoro added his own disturbing observation. "Sir, I do not believe these are really civilians at all. The way they fight, the way they use weapons, the way they coordinate attacks, these are trained soldiers pretending to be farmers and miners." Vex Thera felt a chill of real fear. If the humans had been preparing for this war long before it started, if the weak colonists were actually advanced military forces, then everything they thought they knew was wrong. "Sir," his intelligence chief added quietly, "we have another problem. We have lost contact with our deep space monitoring stations, the ones watching the human homeworld." 7. Wana. The room fell silent. Those stations had been reporting that Earth was still quiet, that the human military was staying home. If the stations were gone, then they had no idea what was really coming. "How long before we know what happened to them?" "The nearest patrol ship will reach the monitoring stations in 6 days, sir." Vex Thera nodded grimly. 6 days to find out if they were facing a desperate last stand by isolated colonists, or the advance guard of something much worse. The patrol ship sent to check on the deep space monitoring stations never reported back. Neither did the backup ship sent 3 days later. High Chancellor Vex Thera was still trying to figure out what had happened when his worst fears came true. The first Earth ship appeared without warning in the middle of the Zephyrian home system. It was not like the crude vessels they had been fighting in the colonies. This ship was sleek, black, and utterly silent as it drifted past the outer defense platforms. The platforms fired everything they had at the intruder, but their weapons simply passed through it without effect. "How is it doing that?" demanded Admiral Kexvoro from the bridge of the command station. His sensor technician stared at the readings with confusion. "Sir, our weapons are hitting something, but they are not hitting the ship. It appears to be surrounded by some kind of field that redirects our energy beams." The human ship moved deeper into the system, ignoring the increasingly desperate attacks from defense platforms and patrol vessels. It took up position directly above the capital world and began broadcasting a message. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UENS Retribution, speaking for the United Earth Naval Command. You have attacked our colonies and murdered our citizens. This ends now." The voice was calm, almost polite. But there was something in it that made Vex Thera's scales crawl with instinctive fear. "You will immediately order all your forces to stand down and return to your home systems. You will release any human prisoners and provide full medical care for any you have injured. You will also provide compensation for the damage you have caused." Admiral Kexvoro activated the communications array. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 10,000 to 1. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death." The response came immediately. "We know exactly how many ships you have, Admiral Kexvoro. We also know about the secret fleet you have hidden in the asteroid belt, the backup command center on your moon, and the location of your family compound on the southern continent. The Admiral felt ice form in his chest. Those were state secrets known only to the highest levels of command. You have 30 minutes to begin your withdrawal, Captain Vasquez continued. If you do not comply, we will demonstrate why attacking Earth was the worst decision in your species' history. Vexthara cut the communication channel and turned to his staff. How many ships do we have in the home system? 8,000, sir. Plus all the defense platforms and ground-based weapons. Even if this human ship has some kind of new technology, it cannot possibly fight our entire fleet. Then destroy it. The battle that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ship moved like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. It was not just fast. It seemed to teleport between positions, appearing in one location and instantly reappearing somewhere else. Zephyrian targeting computers could not lock onto it long enough for a clean shot. But the real horror began when the human ship started shooting back. Its weapons were not energy beams or missile systems like proper warships used. Instead, it fired what appeared to be small metal projectiles that moved at incredible speeds. When these projectiles hit Zephyrian ships, they simply went straight through them, punching holes from one side to the other. Those are just simple kinetic weapons, reported the tactical officer. Pieces of metal moving very fast. They should not be able to penetrate our armor. But they could. And they did. Each projectile was perfectly aimed to hit critical systems. Engine cores, weapon arrays, life support systems, command bridges. The human ship was not trying to destroy the Zephyrian fleet. It was trying to disable it with surgical precision. Ship after ship lost power and drifted helplessly as their crews suffocated in the vacuum of space. The few vessels that tried to ram the human ship found themselves targeting empty space as it vanished and reappeared behind them. When the 30 minutes were up, 6,000 Zephyrian ships were floating dead in space, their crews either dead or desperately trying to repair life support systems. The human ship had not taken a single hit. This was your demonstration, Captain Vasquez announced. We could have destroyed every ship in your fleet, but we chose to disable them instead. You now have 24 hours to begin your withdrawal from human space. If you refuse, the next demonstration will be more permanent. The communication ended, and the human ship vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. Vexthara stared at the tactical display showing thousands of crippled warships. His entire home defense fleet had been neutralized by a single enemy vessel in less than half an hour. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are receiving similar reports from all our major systems. Human ships have appeared at every important military base and industrial center in our empire. They all delivered the same message. The scope of the disaster became clear over the next few hours. Earth had not sent one ship, they had sent hundreds. Each one was as advanced and deadly as the vessel that had attacked the home fleet. Worse, the humans seemed to know exactly where every important Zephyrian facility was located. How do they know so much about us? Vexthara demanded. His intelligence chief looked sick. Sir, we believe the colonists were gathering information from the very beginning. Every trade contact, every diplomatic meeting, every prisoner exchange. They have been studying us for years while we ignored them as harmless primitives. But the worst revelation came from the outer systems, where Zephyrian forces were still fighting the supposedly weak human colonies. Sir, Admiral Texcora reported from the front lines, the humans have stopped pretending to be civilians. The colonists we have been fighting are equipped with the same advanced technology as the Earth ships. They have been toying with us. The evidence was overwhelming. Human forces that had been using primitive weapons and desperate tactics suddenly revealed military equipment that was superior to anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. Soldiers who had been fighting like desperate civilians now moved with the precision of elite special forces. They have been playing games with us? Vexthara realized with growing horror. Everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was a lie. They let us think we were winning while they learned everything they needed to know about us. The final insult came 12 hours later, when a single human operative infiltrated the command center on the capital world. Security cameras showed a small human woman walking calmly through corridors that should have been impossible to reach. She disabled guard posts without firing a shot, opened sealed blast doors with casual ease, and reached the main computer core without triggering a single alarm. Once there, she plugged a small device into the central command system and began downloading the entire Zephyrian military database. Classified ship designs, troop movements, strategic plans, personal files on every officer above the rank of captain. When security forces finally reached the computer core, they found the woman sitting calmly at the main console, waiting for them. "Hello," she said politely. "My name is Dr. Sarah Kim. I am here to deliver a message from Earth Command." The security team trained their weapons on her. But she continued speaking as if they were not there. "Your government has 6 hours to announce a complete surrender and begin the process of withdrawing all forces from human territory. If you refuse, Phase 2 will begin." "What is Phase 2? demanded the security captain. Dr. Kim smiled pleasantly. "Phase 1 was demonstrating our military superiority. Phase 2 is demonstrating our creativity." Before anyone could react, she activated a device strapped to her wrist. The lights went out throughout the command center as every computer system crashed simultaneously. Emergency power failed to activate. Communication arrays went dead. Even the simplest electronic devices stopped working. In the darkness, they heard Dr. Kim's voice one last time. "You should choose surrender, Captain. You really do not want to find out what we are capable of when we stop being polite." When the lights came back on 3 hours later, she was gone. So was half the data in the military computer system. The humans had not just stolen their secrets. They had deleted most of the records needed to coordinate the war effort. Vexthara stood in his powerless office, looking out at a capital city where nothing electronic worked properly anymore. The humans had somehow infected every computer system on the planet with a virus that made them randomly shut down. He finally understood what Sarah Chen had tried to tell Admiral Kex Voro months ago. They had not declared war on a weak species trying to survive. They had declared war on apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. The surrender came 18 hours after Dr. Sarah Kim's infiltration of the command center. High Chancellor Vexthara had no choice. Half his fleet was disabled. His computer systems were barely functional, and human ships appeared wherever they wanted throughout Zephyrian space. The formal ceremony took place aboard a human vessel called the UENS Diplomat. Vexthara and his senior staff were transported to the ship by human shuttles that seemed to be made of the same strange technology as their warships. Captain Elena Vasquez met them at the airlock. She was smaller than most humans they had captured, barely reaching a Zephyrian's chest. But something about her presence made even Admiral Kex Voro step back nervously. "Welcome aboard," she said politely. "I hope your journey was comfortable. Please follow me to the conference room." The inside of the human ship was nothing like Zephyrian vessels. The corridors were wide and bright, with no visible weapons or armor plating. It looked more like a civilian transport than a warship. But Vexthara had seen what this ship could do, and the peaceful appearance only made it more frightening. The conference room contained a large table surrounded by comfortable chairs. Human officers sat on one side, while the Zephyrian delegation took seats on the other. At the head of the table sat a human woman who introduced herself as Admiral Chen Morrison, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. "Before we begin," Admiral Morrison said, "I want you to understand something important. This meeting is not a negotiation. You attacked us without provocation and murdered our civilians. You are here to accept our terms for ending this conflict." Vexthara tried to maintain some dignity. "What are your terms?" Admiral Morrison activated a holographic display showing star charts of the local galaxy. "First, you will immediately withdraw all Zephyrian forces to your original territory. No Zephyrian ship or personnel will enter any system claimed by humanity without our explicit permission." The display zoomed in on human space, showing colonies that Vexthara had never heard of before. There were dozens of them, scattered across systems the Zephyrians had thought were empty. Second, you will pay full compensation for all damage caused during your unprovoked attack. We estimate the cost at approximately 4 billion credits, to be paid over the next 50 years. Admiral Kex Voro leaned forward angrily. 4 billion credits? That is impossible. Our entire economy does not generate that much wealth. Admiral Morrison smiled coldly. Then you will need to find new sources of income. We suggest increased mining operations and improved manufacturing efficiency. We will provide technical assistance to help you meet your obligations. Technical assistance? Vexthara asked. Human advisors will be stationed at major Zephyrian industrial centers to ensure optimal production. They will also monitor your military to prevent any future acts of aggression against human interests. The full scope of humanity's victory was becoming clear. The Zephyrians would not just be defeated, they would become a client state under human oversight. Third, Admiral Morrison continued, you will provide full access to all Zephyrian scientific and technological research. Humanity has need of your knowledge in certain specialized areas. What if we refuse? Admiral Kex Voro demanded. Captain Vasquez spoke for the first time since the meeting began. Then we will demonstrate what Phase 3 looks like. The way she said it made Vexthara's blood freeze. He had seen Phase 1, humanity's military superiority. He had experienced Phase 2, their technological infiltration. He did not want to know what Phase 3 involved. However, Admiral Morrison added, compliance with these terms will result in significant benefits for your people. Human medical technology can extend Zephyrian lifespans by 30%. Our agricultural methods can increase food production on your worlds. Our educational systems can help your young achieve their full potential. She leaned back in her chair. Think of it as a partnership. You provide resources and cooperation. We provide guidance and protection. Protection from whom? Vexthara asked. Admiral Morrison's expression grew serious. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Chancellor, there are species out there far more aggressive than humanity. The devourers in the outer rim who consume entire planets. The hive minds that turn other species into slave drones. The void walkers who exist only to destroy organic life. She activated the display again, showing sectors of space marked with warning symbols. Humanity has been watching these threats for decades, while you were busy conquering weaker species. We know what is coming, and we know how to stop it. Your choice is simple. Work with us as junior partners, or face these enemies alone when they inevitably arrive. The meeting continued for several more hours as the humans outlined their complete takeover of Zephyrian society. Every major decision would require human approval. Every military vessel would carry human observers. Every trade agreement would be subject to human oversight. It was not slavery, but it was not freedom either. As the formal surrender documents were signed, Admiral Morrison made one final statement that would haunt Vexthara for the rest of his life. I want you to understand something, Chancellor. Everything you experienced during this conflict was humanity operating under strict rules of engagement. We were specifically ordered to minimize casualties and avoid unnecessary destruction. She paused to let that sink in. The weapons we used against your ships were designed to disable, not destroy. The computer virus that affected your systems was programmed to cause inconvenience, not permanent damage. The infiltration operations were conducted with explicit orders to avoid civilian casualties. Admiral Kex Voro stared at her in disbelief. You mean you were holding back? We were demonstrating restraint, Admiral Morrison confirmed. What you call a devastating military defeat was what we call a police action. A minor operation, using a tiny fraction of our actual capabilities. Captain Vasquez added her own disturbing observation. The ships you fought in your home system represent less than 1% of the Earth defense fleet. The soldiers you encountered in the colonies were recent volunteers with minimal combat experience. Our actual military has not been involved in this conflict at all. The implications were staggering. If humanity's reserves and rookies could destroy the Zephyrian Empire, what could their real military accomplish? Why? Vexthara asked. Why show mercy to an enemy who showed you none? Admiral Morrison considered the question carefully. Because we have learned something that your species has not yet discovered, Chancellor. True strength is not measured by how much damage you can cause. It is measured by how much damage you choose not to cause. She stood up, indicating the meeting was over. Besides, we need allies, not enemies. The threats I mentioned earlier are very real, and they are coming whether we are ready or not. Humanity cannot face them alone. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to leave, Captain Vasquez offered one final piece of advice. When you return home, Chancellor, I suggest you tell your people exactly what happened here. Make sure they understand that humanity defeated your empire while barely trying. Make sure they understand what would have happened if we had actually been angry instead of just annoyed. The journey back to Zephyrian space gave Vexthara time to think about everything he had learned. His species had attacked what they thought was a weak prey animal. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping predator that was so far beyond them that it barely considered them a threat. The most terrifying part was not what humanity had done, but what they had chosen not to do. They could have exterminated the Zephyrian species completely, but they had decided the aliens were more useful alive. Months later, as human advisors began arriving at Zephyrian worlds, the true scope of humanity's influence became clear. They did not rule through fear or oppression. Instead, they offered genuine improvements to Zephyrian society, while quietly ensuring that no one forgot who was really in charge. The humans were patient, reasonable, and helpful. They were also absolutely ruthless when crossed, as a few test cases quickly discovered. Colonies that tried to resist human oversight simply stopped existing. Their populations relocated to more cooperative worlds. Within a year, most Zephyrians had convinced themselves that human rule was actually beneficial. Life was better, safer, and more prosperous under human guidance. The younger generation even began to see humans as protectors rather than conquerors. But Vexthara never forgot Admiral Morrison's warning about the greater threats lurking in the darkness between stars. When those enemies finally arrived, as humanity had predicted they would, the Zephyrians found themselves fighting alongside their former enemies, against horrors that made their own military look primitive. It was only then that they truly understood what Captain Vasquez had meant about humanity being annoyed rather than angry. When humans actually went to war against the Devourers and the hive minds, the Zephyrians learned what their species would have faced if they had genuinely threatened Earth. They were very grateful they had never found out.